Okay, we really have to kick off with these comments that have just, well, taken over the NBA offseason chatter. Forget trades for a sec. Scottie Pippen, Hall of Famer, right? He just came out saying the modern NBA rules, they're basically like breaking out of jail for a shooter like Steph Curry.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like a general league critique. He zeroed right in on Curry's legacy. Said flat out Curry wouldn't be the same player back in the super physical 90s. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about throwing down a gauntlet before the season even tips off.
Welcome to Court and Gridiron Report.
Hey everyone, we're Jordan and Jamie. This is where we dive deep into the biggest headlines in the NBA and NCAA football.
We're talking buzzer beaters, big touchdowns, draft buzz, transfer portal madness, all of it. We break down the plays, the strategies, the stories really shaping basketball and football right now. And today, yeah, we're definitely keeping one eye on the gridiron, but our main focus, it's got to be Stephen Curry, why he's still the NBA's like ultimate generational Rorschach test. Because these critiques from Pippen and others, they aren't just simple digs, you know? It feels like a deeper philosophical argument about what greatness even is in basketball. So we're going to unpack those core arguments, look at the counterpoints from some other legends, and check in on where Curry stands heading into season 17, including that kind of shocking ripped off-season look he debuted. All right, let's get into this clash of eras, because I think it really explains why Curry generates such strong feelings both ways, total devotion or intense skepticism.
Yeah, you absolutely have to start with Pippen's whole Era Wars thing. That interview he did with Marca back in September 2025, he genuinely believes the way the game's called now gives Curry an artificial advantage. His quote was something like, "It would be like breaking out of jail. You got freedom. No one is knocking you to the floor." It's like no hand checking, less physical bumping compared to his era.
And what's kind of striking is how consistent he's been on this. You remember back in, 2016? He made even bolder claims, said his Bulls would sweep the 73-win Warriors, and that he personally could lock Curry down under 20 points a game.
Right. And that consistency, it just reveals his core values, doesn't it? Pippen fundamentally values physical toughness, defensive grind, winning by, imposing your will physically. For him, dominance seems to be measured in bruises taken and given, maybe not so much in offensive spacing created.
Okay, so Pippen's coming at it from the physicality angle, but then you have Mario Chalmers, former champ, with a totally different take, right? His argument is more about positional purity. He caused a huge stir, leaving Curry off his all-time point guard Mount Rushmore. He picked Magic, Chris Paul, Stockton, but then he saved that last spot for Jason Kidd specifically over Curry.
And the reason he gave is the key thing here. Chalmers actually said he went with Kidd because, quote, Jay Kidd is a real point guard. That specific phrase, real point guard. That sums up the whole traditionalist viewpoint, doesn't it? They value that pass-first, orchestrator role above all for a point guard, which is, fundamentally different from Curry's score-first, off-ball, game-changing style.
So yeah, you put those two together, Pippen on the physicality, Chalmers on the traditional role, and it really paints the picture of Curry as this Rorschach test.
Exactly. It's like what you see when you watch Steph Curry play tells us more about your basketball values than it does about Curry himself, maybe.
Yeah.
If you value that old-school physical game, the bumps, the grind, the size, maybe Curry looks, less impressive, like he's benefiting too much from rules. But if you value skill, shooting, movement, the geometry of the game, then he looks like a total genius, a revolutionary. He just doesn't fit the mold previous eras established.
Which kind of leads us perfectly into the counter-arguments, right? How does the reality of his game push back? Because trying to measure him with only old-school stats or expectations, it kind of falls short.
Right, and this is where we need to really drill down into this concept of gravity. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, maybe overused sometimes, but its actual impact is just massive.
Yeah.
Curry's value goes way beyond just his points per game or his shooting percentage. Gravity is that, immense defensive focus he draws, 30, 35 feet from the hoop. Even when he doesn't have the ball, he literally changes the shape of the opposing defense just by being on the floor.
And there's actual data on this. It's pretty wild. Analysts have pointed out how the mere threat of his shot turned Warriors teams, even ones that weren't stacked offensively otherwise, into units scoring 120 points per 100 possessions when he was playing. That's just absurd efficiency. It's proof he generates offense without even, taking a shot sometimes.
Yeah, and Draymond Green, who's played alongside him forever and benefited directly from that gravity, you put it perfectly, said Curry can, quote, completely ruin an entire team's defensive possession and not touch the ball.
Yeah.
And that's the shift we were just talking about. His dominance isn't about physical force in the traditional sense. It's about space, threat, geometry. It's dominance through, like, calculation, not just collision.
And that reality, that constant pressure he creates, that's the real answer to the soft league stuff, isn't it? The physicality argument just seems to ignore the incredible conditioning and, frankly, strength needed for Curry's non-stop, frantic off-ball running. He's not just standing out there waiting for a pass. He's fighting through holds, getting grabbed, running through screens that feel like brick walls, possession after possession.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen him do it in some really physical playoff series. Remember those battles against the Rockets? Just brutal. To run that hard, constantly absorb that kind of contact, and then have the balance and focus to rise up for a perfect jumper, that takes incredible core strength, leg strength. It's a different kind of toughness.
And maybe to push back even more against any lingering idea of him being fragile, those reports about his 2025 off-season training were pretty telling. That whole stunning, ripped off-season look thing, it seemed like a very deliberate effort to add more muscle, more strength, specifically to handle the wear and tear of his unique style as he gets older, heading into year 17.
So, okay, if we step back,
Yeah.
his impact seems undeniable. The toughness required is clear. Why is there still this kind of persistent feeling among some fans, some analysts, that Curry maybe doesn't get the best whistle, that he doesn't get the calls some other stars might?
Yeah, that is kind of puzzling, isn't it, considering his status in the league?
Well, I think it actually connects right back to that same philosophical clash we talked about.
Yeah.
For decades, right, the NBA built its stars, marketed its dominance around these huge physical specimens, big man, powerful drivers, dunkers, that sort of created a cultural idea of what dominance looks like and maybe what kind of play warrants, like automatic protection from the refs.
Yeah.
So when you're officiating a guy whose dominance comes from finesse, from shooting range, maybe there's a bit of cognitive dissonance there.
Like the default expectation is dominance equals force equals contact at the rim.
Precisely. It might not even be conscious, but maybe a subconscious reluctance to call fouls on contact against a jump shooter the same way you'd call it for someone driving hard into the paint.
It's almost like the league's own historical marketing is bumping up against the reality of the game Curry represents.
But, the older generation, the legends, they're definitely not all singing from the same hymn sheet when it comes to Curry critiques. We should look at what his peers, especially the icons, actually say, because he has some very powerful supporters. Yeah, and interestingly, sometimes the strongest endorsements come from players who represent the total opposite style of play.
Like Shaquille O'Neal, right? The ultimate symbol of just pure physical power. Shaq has said over and over again that Curry is his favorite player to watch. But more than that, he's actively pushed for Curry to be in the Jew-8 debate. Remember that famous line? As the supreme leader of the Big Man Alliance, I demand you fans to start putting Steph Curry in that greatest of all time conversation.
Coming from Shaq, that carries immense weight, because his entire game was built on overpowering people. Then you have someone like the late, great Jerry West, the logo. He saw Curry's whole career up close with the Warriors. West didn't hold back, called Curry the most unique player he's ever seen, said he was even more unique than guys like Magic. West also praised his character, his competitiveness, and he made a point of saying Curry's defense had become terrific.
But it's not all just glowing praise, is it? You still have those more measured, maybe even slightly skeptical takes. Like Michael Jordan. Back in 2019, he famously called Curry a great player, sure, but then he added that little qualifier. Not a Hall of Famer yet.
Right, and you can kind of trace that back to Jordan's own long-held views on the game's direction. Even way back in the early 90s, MJ warned about basketball maybe getting too focused on the three-point shot. He worried it might take away from other skills. So when Jordan talks about Curry, you feel like he's maybe projecting some of that underlying concern about where the game itself is headed.
And then there's Magic Johnson. Obviously, he's going to defend his own status as the GOAT point guard based on his rings and MVPs, which is fair enough. But you see him consistently congratulating Curry on big milestones, like hitting 4,000 threes. It shows respect, even if he's not quite ready to, hand over the historical crown. There's acknowledgement there.
But maybe the most fascinating piece of evidence, the thing that really shows this whole debate is philosophical, is Scottie Pippen himself. We've talked about his strong criticisms, but he's basically contradicted himself quite recently.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, just before those breaking out of jail comments in September 2025 that got so much attention, back in August 2025, he was giving Curry really high praise. He was talking about Curry's leadership, his selflessness in welcoming KD to the Warriors years ago. And Pippen actually said Curry should be looked at as one of the greatest guards the game has ever seen.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is a pretty stark contradiction. It perfectly illustrates the Rorschach test idea, doesn't it? When Pippen looks at Curry through the lens of leadership, sacrifice, team stuff things Pippen himself valued and embodied, he sees greatness, top tier greatness. But when he switches the lens to 90s era physicality and attrition, suddenly he's a skeptic. So which lens a legend chooses tells you more about their basketball philosophy.
Exactly. And while all this debate is swirling around him, Curry's just focused on adding to his legacy right now in the present day. So let's talk about the state of the chef heading into this 2025-26 season.
I mean, he's kind of defying the usual aging curve, isn't he? Heading into his 17th season, he'll be 37, yet he's still clearly one of the most impactful players in the entire league.
The stats back that up. Last
Right.
season, 2024-25, he put up like 24.5 points, 6 assists, over 4 rebounds a game, still shooting nearly 40% from three, and led the entire league from the free throw line at 93.3%. Unreal efficiency. ESPN still had him ranked as the 7th best player overall going into this season.
And maybe even more telling, ESPN did that survey recently, right? Talked to 20 league insiders, coaches, execs, and they voted Curry the best American player right now. One exec apparently said, he's still the guy who scares me most, even after all these years.
And you saw exactly why he scares them in the 2025 playoffs, unfortunately for Warriors fans. That fear is justified. Golden State looked like they had real championship hopes again, and then boom, Curry goes down with that hamstring injury in the second round against Minnesota. They'd won game one, looked solid without him. The offense just collapsed. They lost the next 4 straight, eliminated in 5. That's the definition of indispensable value right there.
Yeah.
Revolutionary impact.
So, okay, wrapping this all up, the big takeaway for me has to be this. All the constant debates, the critiques, the back and forth, maybe they aren't actually signs that his legacy is somehow flawed or incomplete. Maybe they're actually the strongest proof of how revolutionary he truly was and is. Think about it. Every player who really shifted the game, Wilt with his size, MJ with his flight, they faced questions and skepticism from the generation before them. That friction, that argument.
Yeah.
It's almost confirmation that you've changed things fundamentally.
That's a great way to put it. And looking forward, Curry's really forcing all of us, I think, to reconsider what dominance even looks like in basketball. It's moving beyond just physical size and force. Now, it includes skill, shooting range, movement, spacing, geometry, really. So the final thought maybe to leave you with is this. When future generations look back at this era, what qualities will they value most in the players who truly changed the game? Will it be the physicality or the skill revolution Curry represents?
You've been listening to Court and Gridiron Report, where Jordan and Jamie break down the stories and highlights shaping basketball and football. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.